Democrats are making some major mistakes right now, really just completely unforced errors. And I want to dig into this a little bit. This, as I mentioned earlier this week, we should really be in the golden era of resurgence for Democrats. And it is instead just bumbling foolishness and already telegraphing the same mistakes for 2020 that we saw Democrats make in 2018. So to set the stage for you, we had the DNC disaster of 2016, right? Absolute and total train wreck, interfering in the primary, resignations, really bad for Democrats, Inc., or what I like to call corporate Democrats. And then I told you last week that there are Democratic donors that are reportedly excited about California Senator Kamala Harris. And they're starting to give her money for the 2020 presidential race. And I said, no offense. She seems smart, seems like a possibly interesting candidate. But we've got the midterms coming up here, right? And anytime I hear that Democratic donors are excited about someone 3 years out, I start to get worried, since that's exactly what got us into this mess in the first place in 2016. Cut to Monday. Democrats announced a new slogan called A Better Deal. I thought it was a disastrous slogan. A better deal could be sort of pushing back against Trump, who talks about how he will make the best deals, but it felt vacuous and it already sort of conceded the concept of deals to Donald Trump. Others said, David, it might be a reference to FDR's New Deal, but yet again, a better deal. Better isn't even necessarily good. It could be better but still bad, right? So it's a totally weak slogan. And the substance is also really weak. And again, just to catch you up on where we were on Monday, this new better deal from Democrats is going to target job training programs, which Donald Trump has talked about. And it's not exactly what's going to get people super excited about voting for you. Democrats want to renegotiate trade deals, which plays right into what Donald Trump has been talking about. And it gets you into the weeds of how will we renegotiate trade deals versus how will they renegotiate trade deals. Democrats putting out, as part of this better deal, more specific spending plans for infrastructure, which also infrastructure is all well and good and with peace and love. But Trump has been talking about infrastructure deals, of course, in a totally cronyistic vulture capitalist way. But it again gets Dems into the weeds, having to be like, well, our infrastructure spending plan is better than Trump's infrastructure spending plan. So big win, really, for anybody who believes in Trump's worldview, because Democrats with this better deal essentially said, hey, we're basically conceding that Trump is talking about all the right issues, but we're going to explain to you how our plans will actually be better than Donald Trump's plans. So this is where we were up until Monday. Now it's been reported that Senator Harris, Kamala Harris, just did a second tour through the Hamptons of New York to meet with so-called influential Democratic donors. I'll remind you that earlier this month, she met with Liz Robbins, who's a top Hillary Clinton bundler of donations. She was back in the Hamptons this weekend to meet more top Clinton donors. One anonymous Democratic donor said to The Hill that Harris is, quote, absolutely going to run for president in 2020. Another source said to Page Six that, quote, she's on overdrive. It's not just about the money. That's the easy part for her. She wants to meet the influential. She's reportedly already hired multiple former Clinton staffers, and she's also seemingly trying to circumvent what could be a Bernie Sanders-style challenger popping up in 2020. She reportedly paid $400,000 to a company called Revolution Messaging, which is the same firm that built Bernie Sanders' digital and branding strategy while he was basically experiencing a media blackout back in 2015. And once again, it's this centrist, moderate, non-starter ideology. The Guardian, Pat, put out an op-ed a couple days ago saying that Harris has a great centrist platform. No, no, no. Didn't we learn from 2016? And then The Hill published an op-ed by a Democratic consultant and lobbyist saying Clinton lost in 2012 because she was moderate and conservative voters supported Barack Obama more. Okay, the problem in 2016 was partially that Hillary Clinton was to the right of Barack Obama, more centrist, and in part lots of other problems as well, they're going in the wrong direction here. I mean, it's 2017 and the Democratic Party is already setting themselves up to lose the next presidential election.
You know, I think because Trump is so scandal-ridden and because the Republicans in Congress are so ineffectual, it gives this idea that maybe you can just stay the course, that you don't have to go on the offense. But we've learned from 2016 that that's not the case because Hillary Clinton primarily ran an anti-Trump campaign.
Correct.
She didn't promote any ideas of economic populism that poll well for broader Americans that can really get you to the White House or just to win majorities in Congress. That's the path that we have to take.
The center approach basically means compromise right now, right? Center is, for example, when Barack Obama starts negotiating Obamacare with maybe a public option might be nice, and we get nothing except tens of millions of new customers for private for-profit insurance companies. And I always like to say this, Obamacare did some good things. I've praised it for the good things it did, and I've criticized it for the bad things that it did. This will get us, I mean, maybe I'm joking here, President Ted Nugent or something equivalent, maybe President Kid Rock, who's running for something up in Michigan, I believe right now. This is the type of thing that will get Trump reelected or even worse. And I'm not saying I'm against Kamala Harris, right? I mean, I'm not necessarily against her, but to anoint her now with this idea of Democratic establishment donors and the DNC and Democrats, Inc., saying, hey, here's who we're going to go with around this centrist ideology. We're starting to go about 2020 the exact same way that we went about 2016. We're seeing the same mistakes that we saw in 2016. And by the way, midterms, 2018. Why are we talking about 2020 right now?
Right. It could be hard to win a battle of personalities against Donald Trump especially. And I think that's why, for the meantime, we should just focus on specific policy proposals, make a Venn diagram of the issues that are most important to the American people and those that people will vote on. So, for example, a broader economic populist message of things like raising the minimum wage, for example, maybe reforming trade deals. All of these things will get people to the polls.
And you really have to think about what issues are non-starters. And this is difficult, right? I mean, we looked at that Gallup most important problem poll where they ask Americans, what's the most serious or pressing issue? And we saw generally the biggest issue is distrust and disapproval of our elected officials. Just people don't really trust our elected officials. That's a big matzo ball hanging out there that you've got to deal with in some way. Healthcare was at the absolute top of that list, and I've been saying it for months now. Democrats need to just say, we're for Medicare for all. We've got a bill, it's HR 676. It doesn't matter that it won't pass with a Republican House, Senate, and White House, but say that it's what you're for. This whole thing of, well, Obamacare has some issues which we should fix, but we never actually will, but we don't want to repeal it, and the Republican replacement, blah, 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 blah. We're for health care for everybody. Here's how we pay for it. It is our moral and patriotic duty. We will be the best country when it comes to tech and engineering and the environment and whatever if people don't have to worry about, am I going to lose my health care if I change jobs? Right? You've got to do that. And then you have to consider what issues sort of show up as important, but may not be as important of a voting issue. So immigration is one that is often debated. You could say, well, no, people do vote on immigration policy because Donald Trump talked about banning Muslims and people loved it and he won. At the same time, though, you have to think about, will a more reasonable immigration position from Democrats actually get people out and voting? If not, maybe you don't make it a huge part of your platform.
When you talk about what issues are most important to Americans right now, you'd may be surprised to learn that Russia doesn't rank very high on that list. And while that is important, I think because it goes to, the integrity of our electoral system, whether or not we have an illegitimate president, as people often say. Of
course.
Maybe not mention it on the campaign trail as much.
Yeah, and as I've said before, if Russia is something big and it pulls Trump down, Trump will be gone. You can't run against Trump. If Russia evaporates and is nothing, you still need something else to run against Trump or Republicans in 2018 and in 2020. And what I can assure you is this, again, idea of let's run in the middle. This is a recipe for disaster, and Democrats are already failing on this. The video you just finished watching was made possible by you through the membership program. You can sign up for membership at davidpakman.com/membership. We are viewer-supported independent media. You can use the coupon code IVoted17 for a 40% discount off of your membership.